Good evening. We're live and welcome back to another episode on Coffee with Craner. I'm your host, Lyndon Crane, joined today by AM 800's Dan MacDonald. If you don't know, Dan MacDonald hosts the Dan MacDonald Show on AM 800 every morning, 9 to 12. And he's also a host of the Here and Now music show that's on AM 800 that you can listen to. Prior to radio, he worked as a feature writer and arts editor for several local publications right here in Windsor-Essex. He's also appeared in over 20 local theater productions and several indie films right in our area. And on the side, as a side hustle and a side project, he runs a local book club focused on his passion, which is not my favorite, but Dan's favorite, horror novels. And also he published a great book of poetry in 2008, very active in both performing arts and radio. Dan, it's great to have you on the show today.
It's awesome to be here, Lyndon. I've been a fan of your show for a long time, so I'm really, really excited for this opportunity. Thank you so much for having me.
And Dan, can you tell me more about the sign right behind you? I noticed that when you first joined.
Yes, this one, the hate has no home here. That was actually started by two people who were just kind of responding to a lot of the negativity that was going on online around town, and they just wanted to kind of create some positive buzz. So I had it's Laura and Lori. They were on the show to talk about the sign, and it really blew up for them. They were selling the signs just at cost. They had someone design it. They printed a bunch of them out. They sell them for $10. They don't make any money. They just kind of want to spread the love around. So people started buying them. And if you drive around town, all over, I see them in Windsor, LaSalle, Amherstburg, Essex, all over the place. It's just kind of a little. They wanted to create a little. Hey, this is a safe haven, a safe space. Spread the love. No racism, no homophobia, no transphobia. I thought it was kind of a lovely message, so I chose it as my background. It's better than my messy makeshift office, I thought.
I love it, and I have been seeing them around. Great message and message of positivity that everyone needs, especially right now. So, Dan, can you tell me, how did you get started in radio, and how did you know it was something that was the right fit for you?
Ooh, yeah, 21 years ago, believe it or not, I started in radio, and how it happened was it was kind of a comedy of errors, if you will, a series of perfect events that all kind of led up to one big thing. But I was in college taking journalism, and my passion at the time was print journalism. I really wanted to be a feature writer for a music magazine. That was my goal for journalism, or be a writer for a magazine. But I wanted like Rolling Stone. That was what I wanted to do. And I started writing for some small independent papers, Room magazine. It was a really cool grassroots alternative press paper that was published independent paper. And it was very smart. It was political. They had entertainment. It was just a fun, cool magazine. And I met a guy there who had worked there for a long time. And we had a shared passion for music. And we decided to start doing just a volunteer radio show for CJAM. And the show actually still runs to this day, 21 years later, believe it or not. He hosts it still. I don't host it anymore. It's called Girly So Groovy, named after a Pixies song lyric. And it focuses on female musicians of every genre. We always call it the only show dedicated to the women who rock and the people who love them. That was the kind of tagline for the show. But it was a really successful show. It got it won some Jammy Awards back in the day. And that kind of got it kind of ignited my passion for radio. And it fueled a lot of the passion I had for going to see live music, talking about music, writing about music. And I found, I like talking about music as much as I like writing about it. Music is a huge, huge part of my life. So that was kind of what planted the seed. And then through a series of events, I got a job not as a DJ, but as a writer for the radio stations that I work for now. AM 800, at the time it was 89X, 93.9, and AM 580. And I got a job as a writer there, and kind of one thing led to another. A job got posted for an announcer on 93.9. And I even thought, oh, there's no way I'll never apply. They wouldn't want me. I'm a writer. I'm not a real DJ. You know what I mean? And I didn't apply for it. And then I heard through the grapevine that people were, why didn't Dan apply? That's disappointing. What's going on? So I applied for it, thinking I don't have a chance. And you know what, at getting this job, and applied for it, and I got the job. And that was back in 2007, I believe. And it's been upward from there. It's been a constant evolution. But that was how I got into radio. I'm just someone who really loves to talk.
Well, I guess you have to be in the role, right?
That's kind of a little bit of a prerequisite, yeah. But I'm passionate about music. Obviously, that was my first love, and talk radio just kind of evolved. I've always been a big fan of the time slot on AM 800 that I'm in now. I was always a big fan of the Lynn Martin show. That was my, and I have said this before I worked at the station, that was my number one favorite radio show. I listened all the time. I called in. That was kind of like the comment section before the comment section, before social media, in the 90s and early 2000s. I'd call into the show to weigh in on topics. It could be anything that stuff we talk about now, something going on at city council, a parenting issue, relationship dilemmas, politics, whatever it may have been. I loved calling in, Lynn, and I loved hearing the other perspectives from other callers. That would get me all fired up to go. I'd be yelling at my radio. So when that job came up, when Lynn Martin retired, I was very sad, but I was also very excited. So I made that decision to transition from music radio into talk radio, and it's been an adventure.
Well, I think the coolest part of what you just told me is that the radio show that you started at CJAM is still going strong.
Yeah, Girlie So Groovy. It airs Mondays, and Trevor Clendert, who was my co-host at the time, and he was my colleague at Room Magazine, he is still hosting it to this day. So when I got on full time on 93.9 The River, I just thought, you know what, maybe it's time just to kind of pass the torch on. And Trevor was really taking off with it, and I just gave the whole show to him, kind of thing, and he went running with it. And I believe it's being syndicated now in a few other cities as well, in the States and in other parts of Ontario. So he's doing amazing. It's bigger than I ever thought it would be, and I hold the title still as number one fan of Girlie So Groovy because I used to be on the show, so I think I have a right to that title. But it's a wonderful show. He's so passionate, and that's what makes it so great.
That's awesome. Now, I mean, you've been in radio for a while, and you've had different careers as a writer, as a talk show host, different things like that. Have there been any specific hurdles that you have faced throughout your career in radio and broadcasting, or even your personal life?
You know what? It's always been the exact same thing. The hurdle, they're always my own doing. They're always my own head, getting too much inside my own head, doubting. Even, when I wasn't going to apply for the job on the river, I thought, oh, I'm not qualified to be an announcer. I can do the volunteer CJAM thing, but I can't be an announcer on 93.9. I've listened to the station back in the 90s with people like legendary local announcers that I've listened to since I was literally a teenager and got into music. I got into that kind of music. And it's always been that voice of self-doubt. Like I know it sounds so cliche and so cheesy, but truly it does a number on you that you're not good enough, that they're going to think you're stupid, or who are you to even think you could apply for this? And it wasn't until the person who ended up hiring me for the river, he said, why? Because I kind of told him this. He said, why wouldn't I think you were qualified? You love music. You're always writing about music. And Dan, you have 7 years experience doing it for free on CJAM, volunteering. Like, you have the boxes checked. Why do you not think you'd be okay at this? And I thought, I don't know. And that's always been my biggest challenge, even from when I was in high school. If I can say now I was an okay writer. I was a pretty good writer. And I can say that. I even still have a weird thing saying I'm good at anything. It's a weird thing with me. But when I would get an A on an essay, or in university, an A on a paper, or a story that I'd write in journalism in college, if I got an A on it, I would think, ooh, fooled him that time. Got away with it that time. Can't do that again. I would think that every single time. And I still have a hard time accepting compliments from people. If they say, oh, I really like the show, that stupid little voice back there says, they're just saying that because they think you're nice and they don't want to really tell you that you suck. How crazy is that? You know what I mean? That's my biggest hurdle that holds me back. It always has been. Pick anything I've ever done, from drama to making friends to introducing myself. And I like to think I'm a rather social guy, but I still have that, oh, they're just being nice to me. They don't really like me. I've gotten better at it, but that is something I've had to work on. And I think I'm going to have to continue to work on that until the end. It's how my head is wired, unfortunately.
And how have you gotten better at that?
I think just, you know what, I used to get if somebody gave me any kind of a compliment, I thought, oh, now I got to say something nice about them, or how do I repay them for that? They were being so nice to me. I think now I got really good at saying thank you and trying to be genuine, just being genuine about it, and gaining a little bit of confidence over time, I guess, and trying not to be so darn hard on myself. Being hard on myself in the right way is pushing out of that comfort zone a little bit, but trying not to be in over my head, even though I get in over my head all the time. And that's when the really fun stuff starts to happen. But really, it's just kind of hearing that little voice in the back of your head, that self-doubt voice, and saying, okay, I hear you, but don't screw this up for me. So you're listening to it because there is some caution in that voice. At the same time, it's also toxic. If a person I didn't know on the street said some of the things the voice in my head says, I'd say, who the hell are you and why are you insulting me like this? You're all horrible. Get out of my face. I don't need to hear this from you. So the same goes for anybody who struggles with that little, I don't even know what it is. It's like the devil on your shoulder telling you you're no good or something. And for whatever reason, you believe it. And it's just a matter of believing in yourself and not that voice of self-doubt. I know that sounds so cliche, but it's a thing. And I know I'm not alone in that either. And talking to other people about it too, people who I really admire and respected, a lot of the radio colleagues I had, hearing them say the same thing, I was thinking, oh my God, so this is not just me. These are people who I admire, who I see in such an amazing light, and they don't see themselves that way all the time. I just got to maybe appreciate that, okay, maybe I am good enough to do whatever project it is I'm doing. And that's one way around it too, talking about it with other people who feel the same way.
Mm-hmm. You know what? I think all of us go through that, right? Self-doubt and
yeah.
Anything like that. And you mentioned having those role models in radio that were experiencing the same thing as you. Who were those people? Why did you look up to them?
You know what? One of them, and I've said this since day one, was Lynn Martin, who did the Lynn Martin talk show, because I always loved how calm, cool, and collected she stayed, even talking about heated topics. And she would lose her temper now and then too if somebody was being, disrespectful. And I try my hardest to follow in those footsteps, but I loved her style. So she was probably my first radio role model. Another person who I really loved from the music side was from WDET, Ann DeLisi. I always loved her style, her taste in music, and I really tried to not rip off, but model myself. The way she conveys her passion for the bands and the artists, she's being sincere. If there was a band she didn't like, she wouldn't knock them, but maybe you had to play them. She just wouldn't talk about them. But the bands she loved, you knew she loved them because she had a story about how it affected her life. And I just love that. Another person for the same reasons was George Strabilopoulos. Huge fan of him back when he was a videographer on Much Music. So way back in the day. And I got to meet him back in the 90s. And I was just, oh my God, I respect you so much as a journalist. I nerded out and made a fool of myself completely. But I loved his style because it was authentic. He always seemed to talk very real deal and just kind of tell the truth. And I admire that about all three of those people, Lynn, Anne, and George. Those are my three biggies for me.
Wow. And speaking of that, with Lynn always, saying how she felt with a certain artist or genre of music, do you ever have that situation in radio where you have to say some stuff because it's a topic, but like, do you ever have to say things that you don't necessarily believe in on radio, or are you only on your show saying things that you really believe in and going from there?
On my talk show, if I'm saying something, I will never endorse something that I don't believe in. Never. If I am saying, I might sometimes say I have no idea. I don't know which way to think. I'm sitting on the fence about this. And that's completely honest. That isn't me being afraid to pick a side. It really is me saying, oh God, like I might have thought I was one way, but then some caller disagreed with it. And now I can completely see their point of view, which is part of what I love about it, that you're hearing these other perspectives and you're like, wow, I never thought about it that way before. That's making me see it a whole different way. That's what I loved about Lynn's show. And that's what I love for me personally about my own show, just getting to hear different perspectives and think about things in a different way. But I've never said anything. I've said things and then changed my mind, like where I think it's one thing that I'm like, oh, you know what? I actually feel A now when I thought I felt B. But if I say something, I'm being genuine. I never lie on the air about how I feel. I'd rather not talk I would rather not talk than say something disingenuous.
Of course. And
yeah.
I mean, that must be the best part of radio is you're able to hear so many different perspectives.
It is my favorite. And my only time that I ever really lose it on the air, if I get mad or if I yell or something, is when somebody takes a shot at me personally. That's when it's like, okay, you can disagree with me, and people disagree all the time with me and they call in, and those are usually my favorite ones. If it's all just yes, that's great. Oh, I agree. You hit the nail on the head. I agree. That's fun and great. And it's great for the ego. But sometimes I love it when someone says, okay, Dan, you said this, but what about A, B, and C that you didn't even bring up? And maybe I'll still disagree with them and say, no, I still feel the way I feel. But if it's a valid disagreement, and someone just feels the same, feels differently than me, I love those conversations. You kind of just consider it a different way. It's when it gets disrespectful, and it rarely does. I'm getting much better at that. It's the hang up button. Hang it up if it gets to name calling or if it gets into that toxic kind of language. But no, I love the different perspectives. It's my favorite part of the show for sure.
Yes, and you probably learned so much just from being on the show.
It's what I've learned so much about everything. I'm still learning. I'm new to talk radio. Really been on radio for a long time, but it's been music. So there's never been the challenging going on. You know, the biggest challenge we'd ever get is getting to debates over who had a better song or something. Which that's not going to end anybody's world. It was always fun and in jest, but now we're getting really really heated with certain things, social issues, a lot of issues sometimes that I'm a part of. Like that's part of the reason why I have this sign up here. The hate has no home here, because I do have to hear a lot of homophobic things sometimes or transphobic things. And I'm a very open member of the LGBT community. I always have been since before radio. And I made a promise to myself, I'll never be closeted for anything. I'm always going to be as out as I've always been, you know, and hearing those things, it's very difficult to swallow sometimes and have to say, okay, that's your opinion. It's hateful, but it's your opinion. Because
Yeah.
some people, you know, they call me up and say, you know, I never really talked to a gay person before, and it's really cool because you're just like anybody else, and like, duh, but at the same time, not duh, because I love that. I think when we
Yeah.
talk, we understand each other better, and that creates a more open space. When we know each other's stories, we understand how we work, and we understand ourselves better too. And I love that. So I was wrong saying duh. You know what I mean? But it's just it's nice to hear that kind of progress, and it does hurt when you hear that there is so much negativity and hatred out there too. That's been a little bit disappointing that I've seen some of that side. At the same time, I think the positivity here in Windsor-Essex, it does win out as the majority from what I've seen on my show anyway.
And it's great you have that show where you can speak for that group of people that might be disadvantaged sometimes, or there's hate towards that group. You can really be the voice for them on the show, and combat any type of negativity that really comes your way.
Yeah,
I think you're seen as a leader for many people that are a part of LGBTQ plus.
that's one of those things right now. It's like, oh, he's just saying that to be nice. That popped in my head.
No, genuinely.
And I do know what you mean. It does, and that's a weird. That L word is a weird word for me too, leader, because I never thought I was ever a leader of anything. You know what I mean? It's just kind of somebody who likes to yap is really all that I've ever been. But yeah, you know, it is. There's a lot of responsibility. That's something that I'm learning with this job too. A lot of responsibility, and I do think as a member of the LGBT community, it is my somewhat responsibility. I'm secure. I'm very lucky that I have a supportive family, supportive friends. I have a supportive workplace, and I'm in a huge place of privilege when it comes to being LGBT that a lot of people aren't. So if somebody was a beacon for me that way when I was a little bit insecure about things when I was a teenager, somebody who I don't even know who they are to this day, but I heard them speak, I heard them go up on stage and read a poem about being gay, and I thought, oh my God, can you imagine not only telling people that you're gay, but getting up in front of a microphone and saying it and writing a poem about it. And it boggles my mind that I've done all of those things, but that person was a huge beacon to me just by being visible. So I think if I can be a beacon for anybody by being visible about it, then that in itself pays for itself for me. That it's worth it completely 1,000 times over.
Definitely. Well, you're in a public figure role, right?
Yeah. You got a lot of responsibility with that. You probably know too. Like you could say some things that could, people can turn on you if you say the wrong thing, right? Doing the podcast, you're getting a lot of buzz. There is a level of responsibility because you're a voice.
Definitely. So I want to talk a bit about switching paths to performing arts. I know you're really into performing arts, and it's something that I'm not an expert in, but I'm learning more about films with the Windsor National Film Festival and stuff like that. So I'm trying to do my homework. But talk to me about performing arts. You were very well into it prior to the pandemic. Obviously, acting and things like that have been put on pause or limited capacity. How did you start getting involved in that?
Ooh, that was something that started when I was in kindergarten. I started being in plays in school and whatnot. Then in high school, we started a drama club because that was my little clique at school with the music nerds and the drama club. So we would put on this lunchtime theater that we'd write and produce and get the lighting and ask our teacher who had a connection with Windsor Light Opera, you know, can you get us a strobe light, a coffin and a fog machine, and he'd bring it and we'd put on these really cool productions and play music, and it was really fun. So that was kind of ignited it. And then I got out of high school and I focused a little bit more on journalism, got into radio. And then in 2010, a good friend of mine posted an audition for a role at Cortisone Theater in Windsor, and I read the role, and it was a role for a drag queen. I would be playing a drag queen in a play. So you don't have to be a drag queen. You were playing one. I thought, oh my God, that would be so fun. And I knew the guy who was directing it. He wrote it. I've known him for years before. So I just said, you know what? I want to come and audition for this because it looks really cool. And something about it just kind of spoke to me. I like the vibe of Cortisone Theater. It seemed like a little family, homegrown theater, a lot of heart in it, a lot of creativity, and very in line with all my views too. They were very gay friendly and very be whatever you want to be. Everything is cool. So I applied for it and I got the part. And it was a show called Drag. And there ended up being 2 sequels. And the funds went to Windsor Pride Center, a Windsor Pride Festival. But they sold out every night. And it was just so fun, so transformative. It got me back into theater. And after that, I think between 2010, I was doing several plays a year, and I believe I'm at about just over 20 shows right now. Haven't done any for 2.5 years because of the pandemic and whatnot, but I'm about 20 shows in now. So about 2 a year, maybe sometimes 3 a year and 1 a year, but it works out to about 20 so far. And I love it. It's just something that I love. It's community theater. So it isn't, I have no aspirations of going to Broadway or anything, but it's so fun. And it's just so nice to take on a character. And the more extreme, the better. That's why I love the drag role so much. It was just so unbelievably extreme. Like there's nothing about me in real life, not much anyway. That's a drag queen. Like I'm not a drag queen in real life, but it was so fun. I love playing bad guys, villains, really sleazy, horrible, awful, mean people because it's transformative and you can release a part of your personality you don't normally get to tap into. That's why I love it so much.
That's awesome. And can you talk about the performing arts culture in Windsor-Essex? What has it been like? I know there's so many theaters in Windsor-Essex and groups that do performing arts. Talk about that a bit.
It's good. I mean, for the most part, everybody seems to have each other's back. Everyone's very supportive. Windsor has a lot of theater companies and a lot of really cool hidden gems and nooks and crannies. There's so many shows going on, shows that are written by people, produced by people, classic plays that are done. I mean, you get everything from the amazing productions that people like Joe Cardinal puts together. You go see a Joe Cardinal show for Cardinal Productions, it's like going to see a Broadway show. I'm not even kidding. Like I went and saw Avenue Q that he did at Cortisone, and then it went on to go to the Chrysler Theater. And the performances in that show, was only 4 people in it, 4 or 5 people. It was like stunning. It was incredible. Wow. It was amazing. It was beautiful, wonderful stuff. And then you get to see really interesting things too. But a lot of the actors, you see familiar faces in a few of the theater groups. And some people are kind of more married to one particular theater group. I was kind of a Corda guy. Like I loved Cortisone Theater. I did most of my shows with them, but I branched out a little bit too. But it's really cool. It's really supportive. And I think once you find your niche and where you are and what style you're good with and what kind of characters you like to try, I think it's almost like finding a little family, you know, and people start to kind of know who you are. Like, oh, you were in this and you were in that. It's really, really fun getting to know people. Like some people I've admired for years and I've never actually had a conversation with them, but I've seen every show they're in. So when I finally do bump into them, it's like I have a lot to talk about. Like, oh, I loved you in this. And when you did this, it was so amazing. And I knew someone who was in that show. So it really is like a family. It's awesome. It's fun. And it's not without drama either, but I think that goes with the territory. It's theater after all, right? So there's going to be a little drama.
Yes. And does your role in radio, or the skills you've developed in radio, transfer to performing arts? Have you been able to collide both?
I think so, a little bit. As far as vocal projection and whatnot, absolutely. And there is a performance element to it as well. Yeah, there has been some crossover and some of that confidence too that you get. Like, here's the thing about radio: when you're done a radio show, you turn the mic off and that's it. When you're done a performance, people clap, and that's a really big ego boost. And then there's that ebb and flow that you have to go with too, because some nights you're doing a show and you say this line and everyone just dies laughing and it's funny and hilarious and you feel like you're on top of the world. Then the next night. And anyone who does theater will tell you this. The next night, that crowd is just a little bit different. Maybe they weren't having wine after dinner. Maybe they're just different sense of humor. Maybe they're just quiet. You say that same funny line. You're like, oh, here we go. Get ready for the standing ovation. And it's crickets. And then you think, oh my God, I suck. What did I do wrong? Why do they hate me? So it's a really good just kind of to level out a little bit and be like, hey, just have confidence in yourself that you're doing a good job and go with it. If you feel good about what you did, that's all that really matters. So that definitely helps for radio, because you don't get the validation at the end of your show, right?
Well, you need the button where you can click and it claps.
Yeah, I do. I need like an audience, a laugh-o-meter or something. I don't know, but no, theater's been a huge help just with getting the confidence up too, and just finding that support group as well, because everyone's so supportive.
Amazing. So Dan, my final question for you, going back in time, you're 18, you're jumping into radio, performing arts, you're finding yourself. What would you tell your 18-year-old self? Because I think this question really help people that are watching, young people, maybe some advice that they could use in their time now.
I would probably tell my 18-year-old self to, this is going to sound so cheesy and typical, but believe in yourself. But truly, that little voice of self-doubt that you hear so much, really go with your gut. Because I did get thrown off a little bit when I was 18 years old, and I graduated high school. And for me, I was a little bit directionless, didn't really know what to do. I knew that I was really good at writing. I knew that I loved music. And I knew that I was good in English class. I was good at writing essays and whatnot. So I thought, okay, I guess the only thing I can do is go to English to take English literature, which was great. I have no regrets about it at all. But I didn't really have any direction. I just knew I needed to get a BA, and that was it. When really, finally, 3 years in, being frustrated and not knowing what to do, everyone's saying, oh, you're going to be a teacher. And I said, no, I'm not going to be a teacher. I don't know what I want to do. And that's what was freaking me out, was I don't know what I want to do. And it was a conversation I had with a friend who talked about journalism. And I said, writing, passion, all these things that I can finally apply to something and do something. And that set me on that track. And I think I was just so preoccupied with everyone saying, well, you have to go, no matter what, just take anything at university. And I really wish I would have listened more to what I was good at and what I wanted to do. And I think I would have fell into my little niche a lot faster than I did, because I was sidetracked a little bit. So as cheesy as it sounds, believe in yourself, that voice of self-doubt, listen to it, don't let it rule you, and follow what you want to do at the end of the day. There's going to be influences, some of them guiding you right, some of you derailing you. Do what you are good at and what you love. That's the best advice I could give myself back in the day.
Wow. I mean, really great advice to close off the show, and many people, even my age, right, knowing what's next. What are you doing after university? What are you doing after high school? It's so hard, right? And believing in yourself is important. And removing the self-doubt, like you said, is a very valuable skill that everyone should really work on. So
and do as much as you can. Do as much as you can. Like, get out there, do a podcast, do theater, write, volunteer, whatever it is you can do. Just explore things and do things. And I think a lot of people will be shocked where they end up.
That's amazing. Well, Dan, I mean, it was really cool to interview you this time and talk about all the exciting stuff that you have in radio and your personal life, all the different hobbies that you're doing, and all the great work that you're doing as a public figure in Windsor-Essex. So pleasure speaking with you, and I really appreciate your time tonight.
Well, I appreciate all you do, Lyndon. I'm a big fan of the show, and I'm pumped that I finally got to have Coffee with Crainer.
Yes. Thanks, Dan, and thanks to those watching and all your comments. We appreciate it. We'll talk soon.